Hundreds of demonstrators take to the streets of Arlington in a show of solidarity. This after the senseless killing of George Floyd in Minneapolis last week, which started a chain reaction of nonviolent and unfortunately violent protests from coast to coast. This week we talked to Arlington's town manager to get his reaction to the tragic events of the past 2 weeks. It's an election day perfect storm. Because of the ongoing pandemic, closed facilities, and social distancing, we must resort to older means of communication to get the latest town election results. We'll explain. A new and quicker way to get COVID-19 testing in town, more than 230 patients came out to the first drive-through COVID-19 clinic at Urgent Care. It was so busy, Urgent Care is doing it again. There are more than 300 positive COVID-19 cases in town, more than 40 deaths. All this as Arlington continues to stay together, apart.
From McLennan Park to Spy Pond, from Poets Corner to the Mystic River, we have Arlington covered. We're your neighbors, a friend you can turn to. This is ACMi News.
Good evening, and welcome to this week's edition of ACMi News. I'm Jeff Barn. For nearly 3 months now, the major story worldwide, of course, has been the ongoing coronavirus pandemic that so far has claimed more than 100,000 lives nationwide right here in the U.S., including 40 in Arlington alone. But another horrific story we've been following and watching on TV night after night is the outright destruction of dozens of our major cities in the United States. This after the senseless death of 46-year-old George Floyd in Minneapolis on May the 25th at the hands of a police officer who has since been charged with a crime, and 3 other officers who did nothing but stand around and watched. ACMi News interviewed town manager Adam Chapdelaine about this appalling event, what Arlington's response was, and other news of the day.
You know, this is just another one in the long line of pieces of direct evidence that the time is long overdue to start addressing racial injustice and the lack of racial equity in our country. And a lot of this is very obviously focused on policing because of George Floyd's killing at the hands of multiple police officers. But it's broader than just policing, right? Our society has many instances of systemic racism, institutional racism, and unfortunately still to this day, individual racism. And we need to really start to focus on actionable changes we can make at the local level, the state level, and the federal level to start to change this. And I think that's what the majority of the protesters are looking for. They're looking for real change. They want real change. They want real equity. And I'm so proud that Chief Flaherty and Jill Harvey and Christine Vargiano, that everybody was very ready, very willing to quickly get a statement out. In hindsight, a few days later, I wish at least my quote had been stronger. I know we used the word death in the statement and not killing. It was a killing.
It was.
I just watched another video, actually a pretty good 9-minute video that the New York Times put together, stitching together both security camera footage and the footage of people with their smartphones who were on scene. And it is a total and complete breakdown of so many things. The actions and inactions of those officers is nothing short of despicable and disgusting.
But how important is it to have a police department like the one we have in Arlington, which in many, many ways is much differently run than your big city police departments? I would think that a department like Arlington's would be more in the forefront as serving as a model for law enforcement and how they and the community work together to maintain law and order with dignity and in a civilized manner.
I think it's so critical to have a department like you just described, like the Arlington Police Department. Are we perfect? No, far from it. Is the department perfect? No. Is the town perfect? No. Do we have a long road ahead of us to achieve something that can even look like racial equity and racial justice? Certainly, a long, challenging, painful road. But the Arlington Police Department and nearby departments, right? That we're lucky to be living in Greater Boston. These are departments that for years have been undergoing de-escalation training and other sensitivity trainings and trainings around community policing, committing to the community policing model. So that, like you just described, these are people who are working for the betterment of the town and working with the community to police the town. Again, do we have things that we need to continue to work on? Yes, but I do think it's also fair to say that in Arlington, we have a chief in Julie Flaherty, as well as I know many officers who are just so truly committed to community policing and safe and just and fair policing. So I think in that regard, we're very lucky.
Well, and hats off to Chief Flaherty, the Arlington Police Force, and the fact that they may serve as a model for better policing in the future, because what happened in the last week and a half, and this has been simmering under the surface for years, generations. Hopefully that will right itself, and we can move on from this absolute national tragedy. On to our other big story, the pandemic. As we slowly open up in phases, what are you hearing regarding Arlington, and how safe can you assure that all Arlingtonians will be?
Well, I want to start by saying I don't at all want to chill people patronizing local businesses in a safe manner, but I generally have concerns about the speed in which we're opening as a state. Mm-hmm. I'm not an epidemiologist. I'm not a public health expert, but I've been trying my best to play one on television with all the reading and listening that I've been doing over the past several months, and it does seem like we're moving quickly. I don't think we're alone. Many other states are moving more quickly or just as quickly as we are. So it's not a Massachusetts specific criticism, but it does feel like we are moving quickly. That said, the local Board of Health is doing its best to work with all of our local businesses who have now been given permission to open up with certain restrictions in place. Our planning department is also working with those local businesses, those that have already opened, as well as those who expect to be allowed to be open in phase 2 and phase 3, to make sure that they're ready to provide services to their customers in as safe a manner as possible. What I guess I would suggest to residents is please heed the warnings that the state has issued, that we continue to issue, and that businesses will issue, about having your face covered, about maintaining social distancing, about staying at home if you have symptoms at all. Because even though we are going to start to slowly re-engage with our society, with our economy, and with our community, we still need to be careful, because we want to protect those most vulnerable among us from contracting the disease.
You could see more of my interview with Town Manager Adam Chapelain in its entirety on the ACMi News Facebook page. You'll also be able to catch it on the town website, arlingtonma.gov. In other major news of this week, this pandemic certainly has caused havoc when it comes to the town election on June the 6th. When ACMi studios are closed, town hall is closed, thousands of postcards are in play, and the only way to get in touch with the winners and or losers, depending on where they are, is Zoom. You quickly learn that television coverage of this election is an impossibility. You'll recall the pandemic led to the town election being delayed until this month. And this year, town officials have added mail-in ballots to the mix to limit in-person interactions. Polls opened using new safety protocols, but town leaders encourage residents to take advantage of those mail-in ballots. How long it was slated to take to tally the results using this new method was a great unknown. Couple that with a hefty roster of candidates running in 5 contested races and a slew of town meeting residents running in all 21 precincts with nowhere to find them come election night and using only Zoom to ensure safety, and well, you have a hot mess on your hands. But not to fear. For weeks now, ACMi has published links to interviews with most candidates in the 5 contested races on the ACMi website. Our Public Affairs Department also has posted virtual debates with the participating candidates. And you can get the latest election results on the ACMi News Facebook page, and also just follow us on our regularly weekly programs right here at ACMi. Recently, there was a COVID-19 drive-through clinic on May the 21st and June the 6th at AFC Urgent Care at 1398 Mass Ave. This is a collaborative effort between the town of Arlington and AFC Urgent Care, and it comes after new guidelines set forth by the Massachusetts Department of Public Health, which encourages close contacts with individuals who have tested positive for COVID-19 to get tested themselves, regardless of the symptoms.
So thank you very much. We are doing a drive-through COVID-19 testing. We are helping the state and the town of Arlington. Today what we've done is we've worked with the town of Arlington. We have all the patients who are coming in have been screened for COVID testing. We have our team, as you saw outside, checking them in, and then we're doing swabs for COVID-19. In addition, if anyone's showing any symptoms, we have our 2 providers outside who are checking them out.
Things have rapidly advanced for us in terms of testing, with now the governor saying that we can test close contacts. We've been getting a lot more phone calls. We are doing a lot of those through telemedicine visits, pre-screening. We're not really now pre-screening based on just exposure or travel from a certain hotspot area in the world. It's now more related to local contact, close contact with any family member that may have recently tested positive for the swab. So suddenly that has really peaked the number of folks that are calling us. And that's why we have started this initiative of a drive-through testing clinic through the town of Arlington. They reached out to us, and we collaborated on doing a more mass-scale testing for all the Arlington residents and neighboring communities.
So I think this is the right step forward towards universal screening. It will also identify clusters where we may have asymptomatic carriers. We do know that the younger folks are more end up being more asymptomatic carriers, and they can pass it on to the older people. So I think it'll be good to do that. From a work perspective, obviously we've set up this whole process where the patient has to call in with a telephone visit or a video visit, just so that we can screen them, see what the risk factors are, what they've done, is there travel history, is there someone in the family who's been sick. So I think it helps us also understand what the volume is going to be, and then ultimately we're bringing them in for these clinics. As Mushmi said, we're doing a drive-through clinic, but besides that, we're doing testing every day in our centers, and we've created protocols to do that.
I just wanted to thank the town of Arlington, Natasha Warden, the Public Health Director, Chief Julie Flaherty, the Town of Arlington Police Department. Everybody has been very supportive for this COVID-19 drive-through that we're doing today, and we really hope to curb the coronavirus spread here in Arlington and neighboring communities. And thank you again, everybody, for your cooperation.
If you wish to get tested, you must call AFC Urgent Care first at this number, 781-648-4572, for a pre-screening. Now, once you're screened and approved, you will be assigned an appointment time. If you miss the drive-through clinic, you can still call AFC Urgent Care at 781-648-4572 for in-house COVID-19 testing.
I'm Brenda Mahoney for ACMi News. Arlington Public Schools responding to the killing of George Floyd while being arrested by Minneapolis police. Superintendent Kathleen Bodie putting out a statement pointing to ongoing diversity training for staff members, and a video message from Arlington High School Principal Matthew Jangers saying they are not immune to racism, pointing to the work they are doing regarding a disproportionate amount of black students being suspended. Meanwhile, the school committee continues to deal with the fallout of the pandemic at its May 28th meeting, hearing about remote learning and the participation rates there, and looking at that and planning for next year. Arlington Public Schools Superintendent Kathleen Bodie revealing what she called interesting trends heading into the second half of the remote learning plan.
At the elementary level, the participation for the hangout meetings is higher than it is for turning in assignments. And that's even markedly different, a little bit different between the K2 and the 3-5. The principals hypothesized that one of the reasons why the assignment turn-in at the earlier grades is lower is that it involves so much more parent support to do that.
But when it comes to class video meetups, Bodie says the opposite is true at the secondary level. And according to one middle school teacher, a pilot of live synchronous lessons is simply falling flat.
We don't get full participation from the kids, which is hard, and more, the kids who are showing up pop in and they don't have their cameras on, they don't have their microphones on, and it gets really challenging. I mean, I've been running mine as current events discussions, and trying to talk about racism in America when you're just looking at a bunch of initials on a screen and you can't get any sort of facial recognition feedback from kids is really hard.
Assistant Superintendent Roderick McNeil saying a study group will look at ways to improve live direct learning.
The various things that we're going to focus on is expectations of students, sharing best practice, and identifying guidelines that we can share with teachers so that they can take these things in consideration as they do their lesson planning, and also to identify the tools, the technology tools that we can utilize to support teachers in their lesson planning.
APS preparing for 3 possible learning scenarios for next year, with full on-site school the least likely, according to Bodie.
There's really 3 basic models we could be facing next year. One is just returning to school as normal. I'm not sure that's highly, highly likely, but if we were in an entire remote or if we're in a hybrid model, and we're planning for all of these, what we're learning now is going to be very helpful. I think everybody understands that if we are in a remote learning environment next year, starting school, that we would have to learn from this so that we have probably a different schedule to what we're doing. In fact, probably definitely a different schedule, much more synchronous teaching, but then learning what is an appropriate length of time for that as well.
Another possible barrier to live lessons brought up is teachers with children of their own. School committee member Jeff Thielman saying, overall, parents are tired and the school should try to reopen.
The reality we face as we deal with COVID-19 is that we can't keep everybody, we can't make it perfect. We can never make it perfect in this environment. We're going to have to live with some uncertainty. We're going to have to respect parents' rights. Many parents, many people that I run into feel like our mindset, at least, has to be that we're going to do everything we possibly can to open as safely as we possibly can, understanding we can't be perfect.
Another school committee member did mention concerns for staff members if they were to return to work. It's really out of the school committee's hands. There are CDC guidelines for schools reopening, and at the state level, there is a return to school working group with results of that expected over the summer. Brenda Mahoney, ACMi News.
Recently, I talked to Rich Raymond, who was the CEO of Armstrong Ambulance Service right here in Arlington. And he tells me how his staff has adjusted to this pandemic, keeping themselves and their patients, obviously, as safe as possible. Rich tells me his crews have transported many COVID-19 patients in recent weeks, but surprisingly, many other emergency calls which would require an ambulance have tapered off. What is a typical day like for EMTs now at Armstrong, given the COVID-19 crisis?
It's really changed quite a bit, and that change, has really happened in hours. It's almost like our business model changed within 72 and 96 hours, somewhere around there. We lost 50 or 60% of our business, and that's because the message got out to stay home, stay safe. So it is working, but it really affected our business model where our providers just drastically stopped working almost. And since the middle of March to present day, the only real transportation we're doing, medical transportation, medical responses, is truly the sick COVID patients. So that's changed our whole staffing, where we now have paramedics that have to trace. When one of our providers, EMT paramedic, is exposed, we have to trace on who else that EMT or paramedic came in contact with, who else they worked with, and is there a quarantine potential. So that is a different business model for us, that position. The equipment we now have to wear, you'll hear on the news, PPE, and how it's not accessible. It certainly was not accessible weeks ago when we needed it, and we still need it. But there was a big concern that we weren't getting the equipment. We have plenty of equipment on order, but we can't get it delivered fast enough. We definitely had our times of makeshift face masks and gowns and doing the best we can do without the right equipment. I don't want to say right equipment, but with a augment of equipment where we didn't have gowns, so we're using our rain gear instead. And then we disinfect the rain gear after each call. We have one person who is totally, his job is to go around and disinfect and in all of our bases, all of our dispatch centers, all of our anywhere there's high touch points of patients, we hit them as much as we can with fogging machines and machines we never had up until about a month ago to make sure our bases are clean and we're putting our employees in very little risk. Floor mats, when they walk into bases we just ordered today, when they step on these mats, it disinfects their boots. We totally shifted the way we look at caring for not only the patient, but we're going to care for our staff now. Armstrong would never want our employees to get sick, our employees to bring any illness to another patient or bring that illness home to their loved ones. We're doing as much as we can with the accessibility of PPE that we can to keep everybody safe.
Rich, you were saying your business is down like 50, 60% in the last 4 weeks. Is that because people who would normally use an ambulance, they're saying, hey, no, I don't want to go. I don't want to go to a hospital. That's a petri dish for COVID-19. Is that what's happening?
Yeah, you bet. The heart attacks, the strokes, the head bleeds, the trauma, the car accidents, the little, minor cuts, or not so much cuts, but minor illnesses that someone would use ambulances to get to and from medical either appointments or medical emergencies. No one wants to go into those hospitals because they don't want the chance of getting COVID. However, the hospitals are doing a great job at keeping COVID segregated in the ER. So there's a lot of concerns that people are getting sick at home and not doing anything about it. And from the emergency settings, the emergency room and our world of EMS, we're really concerned about that. So if you do, or if populations and folks and residents need access to care, don't hesitate to use it. The hospitals are doing a great job at keeping it clean.
You can see my interview in its entirety with Rich Raymond on our ACMi News Facebook page. Okay, now it's time to go to our Ponderscope as we do right here each and every week from my makeshift Studio A to your makeshift Studio B. Take it away.
Hello and welcome back to this week's edition of the Ponderscope, your Arlington High School news, updates, and more. On Saturday, June 6th at 5 p.m., the Arlington High class of 2020 will graduate together. An online ceremony hosted by ACMi will honor this year's graduates and commemorate the legacy of the class over these past 4 years. On Sunday, June 7th at 1 p.m., there will be a senior caravan of cars going throughout Arlington. In order to maintain social distancing, it is asked that you do not attend the caravan unless you live along the route, which can be found at tinyurl.com/AHScaravan. If you do live along the caravan route or have a storefront on the route, make sure to make some signs, decorate your windows and sidewalks, and make some noise for our graduates. Both the ceremony and caravan will be available live on ACMi's public channel and education channel, YouTube channel, and Facebook page. Another exciting announcement in the news involves the Arlington High Scoops Club. Committed to raising money for the Jimmy Fund, the club will be hosting an online live talent show event, Arlington's Got Talent, on June 20th starting at 6 p.m. During this live stream event, a student host will display submissions from people across the community demonstrating their best and most enticing talents. Submissions are now open to all members of the community. If you would like to donate to the cause, participate in the talent show, or just want more information, be sure to contact fellow Ponderscope host and organizer of the event, Sagar Rastogi, email linked in the description. Another important notice. If you are the age of 18 or above, be sure to cast your vote in the upcoming townwide elections on June 6th. With many board members, town meeting members, and other officials on the ballot, this has definitely proved to be a wide-ranging election for the town. More information on candidates, deadlines, and guidelines are located on the Town of Arlington website. And before we wrap up this week's Ponderscope, I want to take a moment to acknowledge the deaths of George Floyd, Ahmaud Arbery, Breonna Taylor, and the many victims of racist violence in our country. On behalf of the entire Ponderscope team, we are standing in solidarity with those advocating for peace and equality for all. Thank you for tuning in to this week's edition of Ponderscope. From ACMi, I'm Sam Derringer.
Thanks, guys. We appreciate it as always. If you want to see the latest stories we're doing for our newscast, just go to the ACMi webpage, acmi.tv, and click on Newscasts. You can also go to the ACMi News Facebook page if you wish. We are updating that on a daily basis. And if you want to see what the town is up to regarding the coronavirus pandemic or any other stories in town, just go to their webpage, arlingtonma.gov. That'll do it for this week's edition of ACMi News. Thanks so much for joining us. I'm Jeff Barn. Please stay safe, and if you can, help out others. We'll see you next week. Take care.
You can always check out our latest segments and newscasts on the web at acmi.tv/news. And don't forget to like us on Facebook and follow us on Twitter and Instagram at ACMi News. Make sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel as well. You'll find us at youtube.com/ACMi News. If you have any news tips for us or wish to become a citizen journalist, we'd love to hear from you. Email us at news@acmi.tv or stop by ACMI Studio A at 85 Park Avenue.